Hey, I'm Tommy Chong. Welcome to High on Homegrown.
Yes, everybody, and welcome to another episode of High on Homegrown, the cannabis podcast from Percy'sGrowroom.com. I am Mackie from the UK, and this episode is Grow Guides number 3, where we discuss all about different types of grow mediums which you can use to grow cannabis. This goes from soil to hydroponics, cocoa, and all different types of mediums, and we try and help you decide which one is going to be best for you to start in. If this episode still leaves you with questions, then head over to Percy'sGrowroom.com, sign up there and ask any questions you've got, and we'll happily help you decide which medium is going to be the best for you to start your growing. This is the Friday's episode, so of course we have the session this evening. You can come and join us if you're part of the mailing list. All of the links are going to be sent out there. Make sure you sign up to the mailing list to get all the links to all of the episodes you can download this week, and also the live episodes that are coming up over on the weekend. We of course have the live show, which comes up on Sundays. Every Sunday we have the live show where we record the grow guides and the cannabis news. So feel free to join us over on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/highonhomegrown. And you can find us there on Sunday, every Sunday for a live show. And it'd be good to see you there. But in the meantime, this is the Grow Guides, all about grow mediums for growing cannabis. I hope it helps you out. And of course, as I said, come and join us over at Percy'sGrowroom.com if you have any questions. Thanks for listening. Much appreciated. I'll see you at the end where we wrap this shit up. Enjoy. So today we're talking about mediums and whether psychics are real.
Talk to ghosts, or is it all bullshit?
Yes, so mediums, man, and this is a difficult one really because it's a complex question. It's what medium does somebody start growing cannabis in? So we'll quickly go over what different kinds of medium there are. Right, we have soil, and in soil we have different variations of soil, like just soil out of a bag. Then you have the super soil and the living soil. What other soils is there? TG, you got any ideas there?
Not really. Garden soil. I don't know. Some people use that.
Pro mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, though, soil does have a definition. You know, you need organic components, but you need minerals. You need a microbial component to it. So soil, what's the word I want? Well, specifically is not the word I want, but it works. It does have a definition. But yeah, when you buy potting soil, generally that's just kind of like a mixture of peat and some perlite, maybe some vermicastings if you're lucky. But generally it's inert. It has no nutrients in it. I wouldn't call that a soil, though. I would call that a soil-less medium.
They just call it a potting mix pretty much.
Yeah, potting mix. But yeah, soil does something. It doesn't just hold your plant.
Just don't
dirt?
call it dirt.
Yeah, fucking don't call it dirt. It's not dirt.
No, just sorry.
Dirt is
That's
garbage.
what Billy Bond says up there in chat. Nice one, Billy.
I know.
Nice. Is that a control?
Don't forget the dirt, man. Fuck.
And the thing is that there is a brand of nutrients that have cocoa newts, they have hydro newts, and they have dirt newts.
The
I
dirt
know.
newts, really?
And fuck them.
Yeah.
Whoever that is, fuck them.
I actually have a pallet load of them sitting out in the garden or in the shed, and they're no good to me because I grow cocoa.
Probably the same shit, but yeah.
There was cocoa mentioned there, and cocoa looks like soil, but is in fact hydroponics.
Yes.
Because when you come to hydroponics, there's a fuckload of different ways to grow cannabis hydroponically. Hydroponically pretty much means just without soil, right?
Pretty much.
Because you've got rockwool, which is, I don't know, a medium you can use.
Just a way to hold the roots, yeah,
Mhm.
and your nutrients is all it's really doing. The same thing as cocoa is going to do is just hold your roots and hold your media.
And then you have
You're not your nutrients. I mean,
then you have shit like DWC, which is the roots suspended in just a bucket of water, really. Reservoir.
I kind of like to differentiate between, and you're right 100% that cocoa is hydroponics. Most people think as hydro as like you say DWC. I think a better term for cocoa and that kind of shit, even with the soils I mentioned that are just peat, basically peat It acts the same as cocoa, essentially. It performs the same function. Call those soil-less mediums, I think, is a way better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Soilless medium.
yeah, hydro is yeah, like water-based. At least in my mind, you got aquaponics, you get fucking that floating shit, the run to waste tables, all kinds of things. But
NFT, ebb and flow.
Yeah.
There's so many different ones which go into it, man.
yeah, very cool stuff too.
And when you're growing in hydroponics like that, you're going to be using salt-based nutrients, most likely. Some people do use organics, but it can become problematic. Organics is usually used in soil kind of mediums rather than hydroponic mediums, which have salt-based nutrients, which is just standard nutrients in a bottle and shit. So, I mean, that's a quick rundown of what different mediums there is to choose from. But how would you choose specifically which one you're going to use? Right, what would you recommend would be the first medium you'd start off in, GB? What would you recommend?
For me, I always recommend people to start off in cocoa. It is a little bit more work involved. If you're not growing in like a living soil or something like that. But you can correct your mistakes so much quicker. Quicker in cocoa than you can anything. And especially if you're starting off in the first couple of grows, you're gonna make mistakes. And you know yourself, a good flush will kind of put it right within a couple of days. You know, if you're starting to get a deficiency or anything like that.
Yeah, any kind of problem, yeah.
Yeah, I would say cocoa is the best medium to start off in, and then work your way from there.
I'd agree, man. Cocoa is just so fucking easy. But there's different things that you need. Budget would account on that as well, because you need to get a good EC meter, a good pH meter, then you got to buy all the good nutrients and shit. But it's definitely, if you got the budget, start off in cocoa. That would be my recommendation as well.
Yeah, and then the yields, in fairness as well, do be that little bit bigger. I know people will say that you get a better taste and you get more flavor out of a soil,
out of organics,
out of inorganic. But if you're in cocoa and if you're in salts, you do. I tend to believe that I get bigger. Well, I know that I get bigger, bigger yields.
What do you think, Monkey? What would you recommend for a new grower?
Well, new growers, it's a tough one to say, because when I was a new grower in cannabis, but I wasn't a new gardener. So, that kind of gave me an edge up. So that's why I went with cocoa, because I was familiar with nutrients and I was familiar with fertigation, irrigation, and how to water things. Twisted made a good point in chat for somebody just getting into it brand new. He's like simple soil and simple newts. That's almost where I went before I decided to start with cocoa. And that is just a basic, almost like a pro mix soil, just a very cheap potting mix, and then something like your basic Fox Farm nutrients, just to get a run under your belt kind of thing. Not a bad way to start, because you're almost running like cocoa there. You're going to be mixing your newts. You're going to be doing everything pretty much the same way. So, I mean, the advantage of going that route over going full on cocoa and running it that way is, well, you're probably going to be able to source your material locally. Where I live, I have no place that I can go into a store and buy cocoa. It has to be mail ordered.
Damn, that's lame.
It is lame, but I mean, the environment here, people don't do hydroponic grows a lot. If you want to grow something, but the environment's good enough to grow almost everything outdoors.
What would TG recommend? Probably super soil for you, TG? The soil recipe and shit?
Would contact Temple Grower at templegrower@gmail.com and purchase some simple super soil from Temple Grower. And just
are you doing that now? Are you making your soil now?
Yeah.
Sweet.
I mean, locally, it's not like an official thing, but if people want soil, I'll definitely make them up a bucket. But all that fucking stupid self-promotion shit aside, I think that it depends on your situation. Soil, if you have access, like I said, to like a pre-made super soil with all your shit basically built in, and all you do is literally throw a clone or a seed, whatever you have in there, and water it until X amount of days and then chop it. That's probably the easiest. The next step would be to build your own soil, which honestly isn't very hard at all. My recipe, I specifically designed like not with, you only have to buy the shit at the grow store, the weed grow store, right? Because not everybody has hydro stores around, or grow shops, whatever you call them in your area. And B, those hydro shops generally don't have a massive selection and probably are kind of overpriced, just put it bluntly, for a lot of stuff. So I go to the local hardware store. I go to the garden store that I've always, like Monkey said, you don't have to like go to the weed store specifically to get weed nutrients. He uses regular old flower nutrients because it's a plant ultimately. And if that's what you have access to, then I would go with that. But yeah, it really kind of depends on what you do have access to, and what you're comfortable with too. You know, running coco and running hydro more intensely, you'll need to know a bit more chemistry. You know, measuring your pH, your EC, keeping your reservoir fresh if you're running DWC or that kind of thing. Where pH is and that kind of stuff is still important in soil, but like for me, I know exactly how much pH down to put in my water. I don't ever check my pH. I did it once at my new house to make sure I'm getting the right pH water, and all I do is dump it in, you know. So it's there's a lot less to think about in that sense, but the cocoa and measuring all that stuff isn't hard. It really isn't. And you know, you do learn a lot of stuff about chemistry and if you are kind of science based or whatever in the first place, it's very easy to just jump into that. And hydro is super fun too if you're kind of the like you know, you like to build your own shit and stuff like that. You can buy setups and stuff, but like that's kind of more, I don't do any hydro stuff because my, you know, engineering side of my brain is pretty lacking, or you know, it's not even there because I can think about things that I want, but I can't design them, you know. And with hydro, you definitely want to, or with DWC or those tables and stuff, you know, you're dealing with pumps, you're dealing with water and stuff, and
Extra equipment, eh?
yeah, there's a lot of extra things to think about. When they're running, they're fucking gorgeous, you know, and they're not hard either. It's just what you're comfortable with. But all that aside, in my opinion, for a new grower, I would stick with the super soil, either buying it, you know, preferably making your own, because like I said, if you look at my recipe, you can go to the Canadian Tire or whatever B&N, I don't know what the hell the store is in the UK is called.
B&Q we have in the UK.
B&Q, right. So you get your potting soil, you get your perlite, you get your blood, bone meal, all the stuff that's always been used for plant growing. You can also use for weed growing, right? Because it's a plant, like I said.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
crazy, right?
You don't have to go hydro shop?
No, you don't have to buy those things with the lizards on the
Whoa.
label and the big boobs and, you know, all that
You
shit.
see, that's
No big boobs on the label?
Well, you can.
I was
But-
going to say that to you, Tej, as well, when you were talking about the likes of the cheap potting soils and things. Like Canna has been around for donkeys. I was around long before kind of weed. Like people have grown their tomatoes and things. Like I go to the local garden shop.
Yeah.
I buy my fucking Canna A and B, the liters of it. I buy them for like fucking £6 or £7 less than what I can get in any hydro shop or any grow shop beside me.
Ultimately, those premixed bottle newts, you know, it's like laundry detergent. They're mostly water anyway, so you're better off buying powdered nutrients and mixing them yourself. However, yeah, you're right. Like the shit, it's kind of I don't know. It's marketing ultimately. So
well, what does Marge think as well? What would you recommend as a first medium, Marge, for new growers?
I would probably definitely recommend the soil. Like TG said, I started with that last summer, his recipe that you can find on Percy's Grow Room. So if you're looking for that, definitely go there. I got everything I needed at the local Canadian Tire. I didn't have to go to a specialty shop. So,
me too.
yeah, like, or whatever shop you have in your town. Like you don't have to go to any specialty shops. I used some backyard compost to go with it, but I have done like the hydroponic setup in the past with the rockwool and all that stuff. And it definitely requires way more equipment to get started.
And time as well.
Time and equipment. And I'm doing mostly outdoor, and I'm doing micro grows indoors right now. And the soil is just really simple to get started with. So if you're just starting out.
The thing is with soil is the problem comes if you have problems. If everything's smooth sailing, then soil's sweet. But if you have issues, when you're growing in organics, not necessarily just soil, but it takes a little bit more time for food to become plant available and for the plant to get over things. Which in hydroponics, you can get things recovering within 24 hours. You identify the issue, give it a flush and refeed at the correct levels, and everything starts to fix itself. It takes longer in soil to fix things.
For sure. You're right.
So that is a drawback, obviously. But if you're just wanting to get started and you're trying to eliminate roadblocks to getting started, soil is probably the easiest one to do.
Because you can do the same thing with soil as well. You can still use salt-based nutrients, and then that food is available to the plant straight away. So that still works as well.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm doing in my microgrow right now. I'm at about 5.5 weeks in my little pots, and the nutrients in my super soil, I never intended them to last the whole grow. So I'm literally switching to, it's called Rapid Grow, and it's 1 kilogram I get for $10 Canadian, right? It's 15. Just blue Miracle Grow. Works great.
Yeah, man. Sweet. What are you saying, okay?
Nope, I said that's a good plan, doing it that way. One advantage, though, I was going to say with cocoa is, if for a new grower especially, is you tend to have a lot less soil-borne pests in cocoa. I mean, you will have fungus gnat problems, easy to fix, but I can't say, knock wood, I've ever had any problems with things like thrips or mites coming out of the soil.
It's the same for me as well. When I moved over to when I went to cocoa, I didn't get any bugs for years, man. And then when I went to soil, I started to get bugs in the tent.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference, but it's easy to deal with that shit. It's
you just have to be ready for it. It's more common. I find it more common in soil, and I know people are gonna debate me on that, but I hear it more often from soil growers.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. I perpetually deal with fungus gnats. I don't ever not have them, right? I just keep them in check with, like you said, various IPM methods and
the economic threshold and shit.
Yeah, because with super soil, especially my super soil, I use compost from my backyard, so there's definitely shit in it. Like, but it never gets out of control because I got the Terminators walking around. Yeah.
See, there's things that you need to balance when you're trying to decide what medium. Let's just cover the soil quickly. You can get a cheap bag of soil for like a 5 or for 50 liters, cheap stuff. But then you'd have to, after a couple of weeks, the nutrients in it would run out, and you'd have to start using bottled nutes to keep the plant fed. But then there's also the living soil, not the living soil exactly, but the super soil, where the soil has enough nutrients in it to last the plant about 12 weeks. But them soils would be more expensive. They're like £50 for 50 liters or something like that, but generally about £1 a liter. But so it adds up, man. It's very expensive, but then you don't need to buy your nutrients, and you can essentially just pour water into this plant pot for 12 weeks, and the plant will grow and do its own thing happily. So that's something you have to balance out, how much your budget is to start on your medium. And if you don't have very much, if you've got very little budget, then just grabbing a normal standard bag of soil from a shop. It doesn't have to be anything special. That will do you for a while. So that would be a good way to go. But if you do have the money to spend and you want to go on soil, then get the super soil like Eco Thrive or Soham soil. Soham Living Soil is another good one.
Gaia Green makes one too. They're a popular brand. I've never used it myself, but I've heard good things.
Tad Hassey as well from Kiss Organics, man. That's some good shit too.
Yeah.
What are you saying there, GB? You were saying something?
The Eco Thrive soil, that's the
UK stuff.
light mix and
No, that's the
BioBiz light mix.
BioBiz.
Yeah, Eco Thrive soil is some dense shit, man. It's very heavy, but it will only last about 12 weeks, and that's all organic and shit. So you wouldn't add any food to that, but it all bunches up and be about the same cost. You know what I mean? It depends if you have it up front or whether you're spreading it out over a few weeks. But then if you go into the hydroponic things, then the initial setup is going to be expensive. I mean, some hydroponic setups, DWC, recirculating DWCs or NFTs, they can cost a fucking fortune to set up, man, and have it all properly in check. And then when you go for your hydroponics, you need to constantly adjust the EC and the pH to make sure that it's right, which you don't necessarily have to do with soil, like TG said. We say TG, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say quickly with hydro, you just don't want to cheap out, right? I mean, like I said, I can go and buy the cheapest fertilizer, the 15, 30, 15, and still do pretty good. But if you buy a shitty pump and shitty joints and like, everything half-ass on your DWC setup, you're gonna have a bad time. So yeah.
So you're choosing which one you're going to choose is going to depend on your budget, the amount of time you have to spend with it. Because if you get that living soil, the super soil, then you're only going to need to water the plant like once every 3 days, 2 or 3 days, sometimes four, depending on the size of the plant in the pot. And that's all you have to do, just pour water into it. But if you go for cocoa, for example, that's going to need watering every day. That means you're mixing up nutrients every day. And checking the pH and the EC. So that all takes time, but it's every day you have to do it then rather than every few days. And DWC, that will be check, and a major DWC is deep water culture where the plants are grown in buckets of water. And that shit, you need to adjust the pH and the EC of that often to keep it all balanced and in check. And that's going to take up more time.
Your red stays cool too, so it doesn't get algae and bullshit. And one point about living soil too is if you really get your living soil going, the costs to re-amend it when your grow is done and you're starting your next grow are usually pennies because the living soil generally has a lot of nutrients left in. So you kind of just have to sprinkle maybe a bit of bone meal or something on the top and call it good. And it's very, very cheap. It just, like Mackie said, costs a bit more to set up. But once it's going, it's fucking like perpetual.
Yeah. And you can spend a shitload of money and have the whole thing automated as well. They'll check the pH by itself and adjust it if necessary, or check the EC by itself and adjust it if necessary. You just got to make sure that the little bottles to drip the food and the pH liquid in is all there. It can be all automated. Then you can just set it up and let it run. But that's very expensive to get that shit up and running, and it's very complex, man. And as a new grower, you don't want to be stepping into that fucking game.
Yeah. The less or the smallest amount of variables you have to deal with, the better, because then you can, if something goes wrong, you can be like, it was that or that, right? So
it's a toss up, and it's like if you've got the money to get the living soil, go that way because it's very easy. You just have to water the plant every few days, and it should go for about 12 weeks without having any issues. But then if you want to keep it easy in case there's going to be issues, then going for cocoa is a great way to start, man. You're going to need the pH meter and the EC meter and do your feed every day. But if there's issues, it's easy to fix. It just takes a flush and a refeed. You can monitor how much the plant is eating, whether it's eating too much or not enough. You're going to know what's in the medium at all times. And that's the same with rockwool as well. Rockwool is same kind of thing. You're going to know what's available to the plants because you give it to the plant every day. You know what's there in the medium for it, which isn't the same with soil. You taking the kind of a rough guess of what's in the soil and what's available to the plant. So you only really get to see what it's missing when the plant starts missing it.
That's why it's important to start out with a good recipe like Temple Grower's recipe on PercyGrowroom.com. Because if you, assuming you homogenize and the thing about my recipe and any super soil recipe is follow it to the fucking T if you can. Those instructions are there for a reason. Don't half this and put more of that in or something, unless you know what you're doing in terms of the equivalencies of an alfalfa to bone meal kind of thing. It takes a little bit of math, but if you follow my recipe, I've been using this fucking thing for like 6 years. Every year I don't change it, right? So like, yeah, it's good. Sweet. It works and it's cheap.
Just deciding what's right for you, man. And each individual is different. If you have the time and you can do it in cocoa to make things easy, then go for that. Don't be getting involved in some massive DWC setup and shit like that in your first grow. You can if you want to. I mean, you can do anything if you put your mind to it, really. If you've got the budget to and you've got the time to, then just choose your way. But if you're like at work 5 days a week and you're not going to be around to spend an hour with the plants every day, going for a simple soil is a nice, easy way to do things as well. There's no right way and there's no wrong way. You just have to figure out what works best for you.
It's what I've been trying to do myself, Mackie, trying to find what is best working for me. I'm going to give soil a go again now. But this time I'm going to try to use a calendar.
What you need a calendar for?
The last time I was in fucking cocoa at the same time, but I was vegging the cocoa plants out for longer than what I wanted. and I've done the same with the soil
Write that
plants.
shit
I
down.
remember they fucking veg for 4 months.
I remember that.
They
That
have
was
this thing at
horrible.
Percy's. They're called diaries. You can record your things in there and
I
then go back
was
and look at them.
recording a monkey. That's the problem. And that's what makes it even worse.
So yeah, man, decide what you want and then do it. And if you want help, go over to percysgrowroom.com and ask for questions. Everybody over at Percy's grows in a different style, a different method, and you'll figure out what way is going to work best for you. So go over to percysgrowroom.com and sign up if you're not there already. Very cool.
And there's always a temptation as a new grower to cheap out on the thing and try and figure out some cheaper way that nobody's ever done it. We're trying to save you a little time telling you that, get what you need to first grow. You'll have a better grow.
Mhm.
I remember I tried starting cocoa like Mackie was talking about with the meters. I didn't have the meters when I started cocoa. I did by the time I ended my first run.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to have the right gear. So spend
Yeah.
what you need to get the job done.
And there's more equipment you need when you go for hydro for sure.
Oh yeah.
And especially if you're going like full liquid hydro, because that'll take the res temp cooler as well.
Yeah.
And that's a pain in the ass. But it's
The yields
doable.
can be good.
Air
The yields can
stones.
be great on that.
It makes more noise as well because you've got the air stones pumping all the time. So if you want to try and stay discreet and not have, but just constant all the time.
It's very hard. It's very hard to get that out of it. You have to kind of suspend it. That's the only way I could take it out of it a bit.
And it's hard to suspend a big bucket of water,
Oh no, the pump. The pump, the vibration of the pump.
Yeah.
I suspended it off a little bit of wire and had it dangling in the air, and it kind of took it took a good bit of the hum out, but it didn't take it all out.
It's because the air stones on the floor in the buckets as well, usually, isn't it? And it's always saying against something.
I'll make a point that if you are worried about like stealth and try that kind of shit, probably hydro isn't your best option because how the fuck are you going to rip that down super fast, and it's
I'll
noisy,
even go
like
so
you
far as
said.
to say super soil will be the most stealth thing because the only thing you have to deal with is water. No newts, just water.
What do you know?
Just as you just said it there, and I'm only thinking of it now, Teach, for if it's a stealth thing as well, soil might be the best thing because if you're living in a housing estate or something, like they're fairly close quarters. Why is Jimmy going or fucking Mihal going into the shed for fucking an hour every night of the week at fucking late hours?
Yeah, there's
Where
that too.
if you're in soil, you might only be going in every 2 to 3 days, depending on how big our buckets were. So that could be another thing to think of as well if you were starting.
You be careful about throwing like multiple bags of empty soil in your garbage for other people to see if that's an issue. But
that's why I grow flowers outside all the times.
Yeah,
it always gives me an excuse to have garden supplies around.
Blazing Stars said there, and Twisted said as well, even if you're growing in organics, you can also set up water pumps and water buckets so it can automatically water itself after a certain amount of time.
Yeah,
that's always a good option as well. And then there can be even less time that you visit the plants, because we've seen people. I mean, Twisted is one of those over at the forum who has left his plants for a week and just let it water itself, man. And he's come back and it's been fine. A few guys have done that before.
Yeah, done that with cocoa.
Yeah, full on week, just left the plants and they've come back and it's been fine. So
yeah, I've done 10 days in cocoa and it worked just fine.
Damn.
Set it up, plan for it, you're good.
Yeah, I have a system made up and rigged up for when I go on holidays. I've had no reason to use it for an extended period.
Not been on holiday for the last couple of years, GB.
No,
why not, mate? Let's go.
Well, it's been hard times, Maggie. It's been hard times.
Hard times. That's all. That's the only reason.
No, that's it.
But yeah, man. Again, like we say on the previous grow guides so far, what you have to do is start doing it, man. Get stuck in, start your grow, figure out what you want to do, man, and just do it. Learn as you go along. I mean, do as much research as you can before you start, but you don't have to do that. You just get stuck in and learn as you go, man. Jump in at the deep end.
The best advice that I can say to any new grower that hasn't gone out and started yet is come over to Percy's and have a chat with the people over there and have a look at what everyone is doing. And that might give you an idea as well of what way you want to go. Because when I first started out, like, it was soil is the only way I really knew that you could really grow. Not that I knew, but it was what I knew
Mhm.
to grow. And then I ended up going down the cocoa route.
You see,
Coco's the shit, man. I love cocoa.
Coco is the shit, man. I love
Mhm,
Coco. It's
mhm.
just she's a very demanding lady
Yeah.
sometimes.
Mhm.
that's a good point, though, GB. You look at other people's grows, and you're like, "Hey, I
Yeah.
have that. Hey, I can do that." And and then
Mhm.
you realize what you're comfortable with even before you knew, and then you can get going. So, but yeah, definitely come check it out. There's so many different ways. So
There may be a lot of equipment that you already have kind of lying around that you were like, oh, I didn't know I could use that for.
yeah,
in
yeah.
here, you know.
There's a lot of guys like myself that I kind of take pride in, like rooting around in the garbage basically to find shit to use and making it work, because reusing, recycling,
Recycle,
all
reuse,
that kind of
reuse.
bullshit, right? So
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
it makes you feel good too, because it's like, hey, I'm kind of smart. This worked. Wow.
My crowning achievement was made when I had the drip tray. I had no way of keeping the plants out of it, so I cut up a stair gate that I had. You know, the baby gates.
Mhm.
I angle grinded the shit out of one of them and just kind of stuck it all back together with cable ties, and I made a fucking stand for all my plants to sit on, so that they were sitting out of the drip tray.
Nice.
That was my crowning achievement in the grow.
So many different things you can just MacGyver to get your shit done, man.
Yeah.
Do it. Do it. I'm Sparky says, Mackie Greenbeard, blue mats let you passively water soil automatically for little money. So was gone a week, no problems. You see, man, it's doable. Just think about what's best. Come over to Percy's and ask, and you'll be able to figure out what's going to be the best method for you. But there's no method that's just going to be straight up. That's the best way to do it, because it's going to differ on the individual. So
Yeah, there's pluses and minuses to all this.
So come and let us know your situation, and we'll be able to advise you better over at percysgrown.com. But I think that's it for mediums. I mean, each medium itself gets a lot deeper than that. But pretty much you just have to start, man. Choose one and start. If you want things really easy and you've got the time to, and you're worried about any mistakes, if it starts to look ill and you want to be able to fix it, then go for cocoa. It's a nice, simple, easy medium, but you have to be there every day to keep it well maintained. And then
But
you'll
you know
get
what?
big, happy plants, man.
When you're starting your first grow, you're going to want to open that 10 every day anyway.
Very true.
2 or 3 times a day, actually.
Uh-huh.
I don't think you can't just go down to B&Q or Home Hardware or whatever and just grab some potting soil and a jug of Miracle-Gro and fucking give her.
That's right, man.
You will get some buds out of that. They may not be the best buds you can ever make, but you will get buds.
Yeah.
I mean,
My cousin over in Australia has been keeping me up to date on a plant that he has grown just in a pot beside other plants, and it's literally only shit that he's bought from the garden center that he's feeding it.
look around and
I
find
used,
out.
man. I bought a box of fish blood and bone, and a box of bone meal, and
me too.
potash like last year, and I'm still using that shit. It's like it's
Yeah.
crazy how long it's lasted and how
I bet-
cheap it was.
Perlite in the bulk, man. I've had the same bag for 3 years and I make a
Mhm.
fuckload of soil. So yeah, it's that's what
Do it, man.
that's what everybody does. Do it.
Figure out
Do
what
it.
works best for you and let us know over at percysgrown.com or in the comments or whatever, subscribe, like, all that shit. But I think that's about it for the grow guides bit, right? Anything else to add? So
I don't think so.
Just
You're done.
go
We
grow
covered
cocoa.
Make a choice and get started, man.
just go cocoa or soil or
Cocoa is king.
Yeah.
So maybe we've made some people's decision a little bit easier, but it's still difficult to decide for you, as the listener, which one you should be using without more information. But pretty much if you have time to, cocoa is a great method. If you have less time, then soil is just as good as well. If you have the money to buy the super soil, that's even better. But if not, standard potting soil with some nutrients that you can add every few days after a couple of weeks, that's fine, man. Just do it. Figure out a way and start doing it.
Come to Percy's, we'll help you.
So yes, that's mediums. We have some questions that we should cover. Specifically, we've got one first here from Marge.
Yeah.
Because it's about edibles. They like to ask you questions. Why do they like to ask you so many questions about edibles, Marge? Do you know what
Oh,
that's about?
I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of into them. a little
Yeah.
bit.
Then you should do a
So-
podcast,
Well, as it happens, Bite Me the Show About Edibles is available on all platforms.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
So this question is, I didn't say who it was from, actually. Or
Oh,
I
he didn't,
miss-
did it? Yeah, but no.
No.
I think it might have been I Am Sparky, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, well, they're asking, when making Cannabutter using kefir bubble hash, do I still need to decarb? In previous attempts, I've put it in the oven at 110 degrees Celsius for 15 to 20 minutes, and I got a melted mess. I then dissolved in butter. Can't help thinking the process of melting hash or kefir into butter would achieve similar temperatures. So short answer is yes, you do need to still decarb. And I've asked this to a whole bunch of different people who know a lot more about this stuff than I do, chefs and all the rest of it. And you still do need to decarb, because when you're infusing it, if you skip the decarb, it's not going to be nearly as potent as it would be if you did decarb. And that kind of ends up wasting your material, if you will. So not skipping that step is pretty important. I have to admit, I've never used hash, like bubble hash. I have used keef before, and I decarbed the keef before I used it as well. And I used it in infusing honey, I think, at the time. But I would definitely still do the decarb, because it won't be as potent if you don't. And I just don't think, like, when you're infusing it into the butter either, like, you might be getting the same temperatures, but just with the process of the infusion and decarbing at the same time, it's not nearly as efficient either. So I would still decarb.
Yeah, I would still decarb too. I think that it
Yeah.
seems like to be the consensus. Decarb anyway, just to make sure it's done.
You just got to remember, just because the resin is not on the plant doesn't mean it's not the same resin. So those acids are still acids, whether or not it's attached to a leaf or not. So yeah,
Exactly.
hash though, some hash is pressed with heat and is decarbed in that process. So that's why you can eat it, you know, some of it. But bubble hash, like you mentioned, isn't. It's used with cold water extraction. So
yeah, exactly.
it really depends. But yes, decarb it to be safe.
Yeah, because you want to maximize the most THC out of that stuff as you can.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hey, man. And then we have another question here from Artman, which is a little off topic, maybe a little. I'm not sure. But does anyone on the panel use a robot sweeper, like a Roomba? I mean, I haven't got one of these robots
How
running
big
around
is
the
your
house
tent?
vacuuming. You know what I'm saying?
Probably not. Can't be in a tent, right? A room in a
Yeah,
tent.
I think it's got a small grow room. It is because for integrated pest management, my medical issue for my cannabis card is my back. So he's a legal grower who's got enough space and is allowed to have enough space to grow plenty of shit.
I love that he named the bot.
Well, I have a Roomba, but I don't run it in my grow room at all. I have a vacuum, a shop vac that I'll vacuum around my tent and in my tent actually between runs, but I don't use a Roomba for that.
Just
I don't know why. In my head, I just couldn't get like this fucking giant Roomba. It's like the size of one of my pods driving around in my tent. I'm like, that's no way that's possible. Is it a very small Roomba? But then I'm like, room. You can have a room too. I forgot.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be so fucking nice, wouldn't it? If you had enough room to just let your Roomba just run around the fucking bottom of the grow tent and shit. Damn.
Well,
you put a fan on it. You put a little fan on it that just rotates around the fucking room. But why
if we don't need this guest bedroom, I just need a room up in here for my grow room. That's
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just get rid of the guest room. We don't need that bed up in there.
Just got to build an extension on my house here.
Exactly.
It's pretty fucking sweet.
No,
man.
I could see actually if you had the space for it though, and if you did have back problems, I could see how that would work for him really well.
For sure, especially when when you water a little bit too hard and some soil spills over the edge, lands on the fucking floor. You know, and then you just get a little bit of dirt all over the growing floor, and that's a pain in the ass, man. When it's at the back, so you got a scrog on. Yeah, you know what scrog's like, monkey. Imagine trying to reach the back of the tent and get the dirt out from there. Send the Roomba in.
Exactly. The Roomba, it only gets like it's because it's round, it won't get into square corners and things like that. So yeah, it covers the larger areas. You still got to use your dust buster or whatever you need to use to get into corners and between pots and stuff like that, I guess. But yeah, more power to you. I remember the post on the site, and I like the his little PS on it, if you will. He said he got his for $10 from somebody who had a dog, and it freaked out the dog, so they sold it to him for $10. So that was to me the best part of the whole deal.
What about those lawnmowers? Have you seen those?
I have. They're popping up everywhere in all the spring Canadian Tire catalogs.
Fucking Husqvarna makes them.
What automatic
really nice
lawnmowers?
Yeah, it's a Roomba for your fucking lawn.
People crazy, bro. What the fuck?
The lawn's too big, man.
Do you know how big my lawn is? I would love that thing.
But just think
I
about
know.
the blades spinning around on that
Well,
automated device, man. Nah.
Don't be
They don't
back
have
there.
this.
They-
I don't
they
care.
flip
If you are
off.
back there, you shouldn't be back
Yeah.
there. So fuck you.
I've looked at them, and they have these safety things for if they like even lift off, like one wheel lifts or things like that. Like if it thinks it's going over something, boom, it shuts everything off and puts a big brake on. I looked at them with the dogs and everything, and they're amazing. The other fella won't let me get them, you know, because it
Yeah, the
doesn't collect the
future is
grass.
now.
No, man.
They are brilliant.
Employ your local gardener, and they'll do it for like the same kind of price, I'm sure.
Probably so.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe.
Yeah.
But this is what I was saying. See, having these Roombas and things like that has taken away from, you know, the way people like used to will come and clean your house for like a tenner an hour.
Yep.
You know,
I wouldn't let anybody in my
spend 2 hours a week
fucking
there,
house.
there.
Give me a Roomba.
You know?
Fuck that.
Yeah,
But,
that's the
You know,
problem, innit?
that's it.
But
has taken
outside,
away
doing the
from
garden.
like that, you know, and
Yeah,
for me
so-
out in the garden even.
And
It's
Martin
device
brings
to
up a good point
automatics.
there in chat as well. What's up, Martin? He says, how long until these AI lawnmowers turn on
Yeah.
us? This is what I'm saying with them blades on and shit. You ain't got a chance. Like, come on,
Knocking
lawnmower. I'll
at the
fuck you.
door.
I'll fuck you.
It's
And
gonna
then chop,
happen
chop, man.
eventually anyway.
Lawnmower
I
man.
think so.
Oh my
I think
God.
March is right. It's inevitable.
That's right.
Yeah.
It probably won't be in our lifetime anyway, so we might as well use the technology.
Exactly.
while we have
This
it.
is just the first shit. They're
It'll
nice
turn
to
on
us
their
right now.
Kids or great grandkids, so let them worry about it.
Yeah, it's their problem now.
Meanwhile, for the robot to clean my bathroom, I'm buying it.
Yeah, the fucking AI lawnmowers going on a rampage is going to be the least of our worries in 50 years, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just put fucking rebar in your lawn and it'll fuck them right up. You know, hide it in tall grass. Be like, look at that tall
Blades will
grass. I
chop
can't
through that,
resist
man.
it.
The blades will be like titanium, extra
Oh, maybe.
sharp, and then
Some
Nah,
they're coming to
unobtainium,
fuck you up.
adamantium. Yeah.
Yeah, just cable, man. You just lay cable in there. It'll wind around the blades. Everything's dead.
Yeah,
Gone.
perfect.
You're done.
Spray it
Why
with
didn't they
water.
just do that? Fucking Terminator. Why didn't they just do that?
Why didn't you spray water on him? Fuck.
Because Monkey wasn't there, man. Look,
Oh,
entanglement. Yeah. What about chains and cables and things?
You know,
Yeah,
the,
just
the
lay a
simplest
bunch of
solution
cable.
is usually the correct one.
fucking T600s are like, oh, what the fuck? Cables. No.
Exactly. So it's like the Daleks. I mean, the only way you had to stop them was have a step, you know?
Ah, shit. Anyway,
Yes, anyway. Where was
Roombas.
we?
Use them if you got 'em.
We have one more question here from Stony the Baker. Said, I'm attempting my first re-veg on a really nice pheno of King's Juice. Any tips on re-vegging mother plant for clones?
Be patient. Be very
Because
patient.
it takes fucking ages, mate, like a month before you start seeing normal growth come after that. But TG, this your kind of thing with the clones, right?
yeah. Well, I don't. I've never actually re-vegged some other plant. In terms of, yeah. No, I don't really know how long that would take. I know sometimes it's not successful depending on how much shit you leave. But what was the question again? You took a bunch of clones and now you want to re-veg it?
Well, he's attempting to re-veg a really nice pheno of King's Juice. Any tips on
Okay.
starting a re-veg and mother plants
Yeah,
to get
you want to
clones?
leave as much as you can behind. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just wait, man. Put it on 18.6 and just wait. Be patient. I mean, it'll continue to grow. So, like, say you've come to the end of harvest, you remove all the big buds, leave the popcorns at the bottom and the lower leaves and shit like that, and then just flick it back to 18.6 and just keep the plant going. Keep watering it. You know, start watering it with if you're feeding it and it's not in living soil and shit, then start using the veg newts on it again. And it would just take time, but you'll see the growth will come back twisted and deformed. It won't look right for a good few weeks. And then after about 4 weeks, it will start to look between 4 and 6 weeks. It can take a while, man, because the hormone has to die down, which makes it flower. And once that's died down and just gone back to the veg hormone, then that needs to express itself a little while after as well. But it takes a few weeks, man. And the plant can look like shit while it's happening. But once you're done, if you can veg it back out then, and then you'll be able to take some nice cuttings from that. And then you can make one of those plants into the main mother then, or you can keep the old mother alive. But that's up to you.
That's the hard thing about, it's like taking clones. You either take a bunch of clones before you know what's good, or you like miss a fucking diamond in the rough, right?
Yeah.
Because and that's the clone only debacle.
Yeah. It's a bitch when that happens, man.
Yeah, but re-veg is a good option, and yeah, I think you guys are right? I've actually, after I've harvested my plants, I usually take my root balls out and I go and set them on my compost pile. And if I don't have enough room in my compost, I don't chop them up. I just set, basically a plant without a pot just sitting on the ground. And those things, because of rain and shit outside, they stay alive sometimes for, a couple months or the whole summer even. And they you're right, they do re-veg, but it takes like a fucking long time. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, man. It's doable. Just as Monkey said, man, patience. You have to be patient with this one. It's not going to be 2 weeks and then you're good. And then you need space for this plant as well. I mean, TG said they just puts this in the back garden. That's cool. It's out the way. But if you're running that in a grow tent and you're dedicating a light to it and a pot to it, food to it, resources to it, it's going to take time. Lots of time.
Mine aren't intentional. Mine are just there because they're going to go and be in the compost eventually. That's, they're not there to re-veg, but yeah, it does take time and space, and yeah.
So
Worth it though.
That's all the questions we have right now. I don't think there's any more to be asked in the chat. If anybody has any questions, then drop them in the chat now with the queue so we know that it's for you. And then we've got Martin in the chat, man. He's going to have his court case coming up soon. Don't forget about that, everybody. Anybody in Ireland, you can go and support him. There's a question here from Chilbert. TG, have you ever attempted making hand charas from an indoor plant? I will try this soon. Chilbert's going to give it a shot.
Not by, no. I mean, I've accidentally rode my knuckles, but
I've tried it, man, and it wasn't successful. It's just take too long, I think.
You need a lot of plants to get enough to, if you watch, there's a really good video, I'll post it sometime, of Frenchie, where he shows the various stages of charas making, and yeah, it starts as like a transparent sheen really for the first few plants, and then it slowly builds up into that beautiful chocolate color, but it takes a fucking lot, and I don't think any of us grew enough to really.
No, that's why I thought you need a field. That's why you see it on strain hunters when the guys are out there and you can just walk through the field of 1,000 plants and just rub a few colas, then move to the next one. But
I wish so, man. Fuck, would that be good?
Just to make live charas like that.
Charas. Oh, yes.
What's up, Pete from Potent Ponics? Steve, what's up, bro? You good? Steve, we were calling you Pete on your podcast, man. Like when we was over at Potent Ponics, when we did the interview Potent Ponics, for some reason we thought your name was Pete. We were it's actually Steve, right?
Laughing and my fucking mic was off. Yeah, apologies, Steve, because I was convinced
it's Pete. It's Pete.
And I've been calling you Pete, man.
Yeah, we called you Pete all the way through the interview, man. Sorry about that, bro. So it's stoners. I'm sure you know what it's like dealing with folk like us.
Oh man,
because I'm thinking, what's this guy's name? What's his name? And then GB said Pete. I'm like, it must be Pete. And then I just calling you Pete for a while, and then I checked your emails.
Piled on, yeah.
And he was Steve. So hold on, what's going on here? Surely we're confused somewhere. So apologies there, Steve. Apologies.
Yeah, that's my fault, Steve.
We're gonna have Steve over on the show for another interview, and we was gonna try and stick to the Pete thing until he's like, lads, my name's fucking Steve. Shit. I've had people on my show I've had on for 5+ years and don't know their names. It's okay. Yeah, that's all good. Thank you for understanding. I knew you'd understand. There we go. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope this has helped you decide which medium would be best for you to start your growing. Again, if you have any questions at all, head over to percysgrowroom.com, sign up and ask questions. It's all free. We ask for nothing in return. We just want you to start your own grow and get involved in this awesome hobby that we all enjoy. Thanks again for downloading the episode. It would be great if you could leave a review on the show on iTunes or Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, any of these podcast networks you download the show on. If you could leave a review for us, that would be fucking awesome. We'd massively appreciate it. Of course, you can become a patron if you want to as well, but again, that's not forced. It's absolutely free to have all of our content and to be part of Percy's. But if you can support the show and the forum, then that's massively appreciated as well. Just head over to patreon.com/Percy's Grow Room and you'll find us there and you'll be able to become a patron. And that's about it, really. That's all the episodes for this week. Hope you've enjoyed the content put out this week. If you could join us on Sunday for the next show, that would be super sweet as well. But if not, if you're very busy over the weekend, then we'll see you on Monday for this week's Cannabis News. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll catch you on Monday. Goodbye.